Welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast, where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the learning and development industry. As always, we'll be bringing some laughter and a bit of fun along the way, but more importantly, you'll get some incredible insights, key lessons, and unique perspectives on everything related and possibly unrelated to training and development. Let's get this show on the road. Hello everybody and welcome to the Impact Learning Visionaries podcast. Today we are joined by Rakefet Hochma, all the way from Israel. And Rakefet has a decade of experience in, over a decade of learning and innovation, experience in learning and innovative organizations development. She's no stranger to managing, guiding and supporting teams towards successfully reaching their business objectives. She's hugely passionate about empowering managers, fostering collaboration, and building an ecosystem of continuous learning. Rakefet is also regarded as a mentor of the highest degree and a champion in building connections in a caring and committed way that ensures each mentee reaches their full potential. Rakefet, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jason, for having me.
So I think this is going to be a very different podcast to ones that we've normally had because there's based on the fact that you are in Israel at the moment and there's a lot of stuff happening there. I think we're going to have a unique understanding on the impact that has on the learning and development industry, how it's shaping and affecting organizations. But before we get there, maybe start a little bit about yourself and your background.
Okay, so I'm coming from the HR, that I started as a recruiter, and then things happened, and I got into the world of learning and development. And I fell in love. I'm doing this for 5.5 years, and I think that this thing chose me before I chose him, and I really like this. The learning and development it's a world of creativity. And we are doing lots of things, and we can do everything to help organizations be in a different place and to go through processes that they never thought they would. And especially now, in those times, it started in the COVID pandemic. And today, these days, when we are facing the war routine that we never thought we would be at, the learning and development is a colleague of mine called it an island of sanity, and I think it's the proper way to say it.
Perfect. So just, maybe we can just jump right in. Is I know from our discussion that you have been working with a lot of organizations who are kind of going through some very unique challenges as a result of what's happening in Israel at the moment. And I think the unique insight and the frame of reference is We've all just come out of a global pandemic, and we've seen the significant impact that has on businesses, how we learn. It's fundamentally changed the way that we work, and it looks like from the conversation that people in Israel are experiencing almost a kind of a similar type of impact in their businesses and their lives at the moment. You want to maybe expand on that?
Yes, of course. So when we were in the pandemic, the whole world was in this chaos, and we all learned from each other and spoke, and a lot of webinars about it, and we've learned a lot of things. But we thought we've learned everything about being in an organization during a chaos situation. And then the war came, and I actually had huge research about it, and I saw that our situation in the organizations it's much different than everywhere else. So in all, I suppose that most of the countries that has army, the people that are in the army, this is their jobs. This is what they do. At our place in Israel, we are working, and someday when there is a war or an operation, people are called to duty, and they're just stopping everything they do and recruit to the army. And it's not just them that are affected. It's not. It's like 2 weeks. You are 2 weeks off from work and everything is okay. No, we are dealing here in a situation that people are being outside from their homes. They are evacuated from homes. The people from the organizations they deal with things that they never had to. Wives that their husbands are in the army that needs to be on the job and also be a single parent, which is much difficult than they used to. We've got people that were injured. We've got people that are having anxiety. People are not the same. Since October 7, all of us are not the same. We've never experienced something like that. And the organizations are dealing with things that they never, ever dealt with. Because people are coming back and they can't just be back. They are having they are struggling, they're having difficulties emotionally. They saw things that no one should see. And the organizations have to deal with it. They have to give it the answers. They have to give it the solutions, and it's very difficult. So we came up with a project. Me, my husband Itai, and a colleague Lilach, and we suggested that the organizations should look at it differently. They should look at it from the emotional side, because none of us is a number, and all of us felt and still feels something about what happened. And we came up with the idea that if we combine the skills of the phototherapy, the language of photoing, and the effective communication, combining with the audio skills, the audio language we call it, we combine it with learning and development processes. We can do something different. We can do it. We can make people think different and feel different, and make the organizations behave differently than they used to.
That's really fascinating. So, I mean, how far along in this process are you?
Actually, we just came out with we digged about it for the past 3 months. Since it was about 3 weeks after the war started, we started thinking about it, and we digged about it a lot because we tried to understand if someone been through this situation before and to learn from it. And we saw that the only thing you can say about coming back or coming back to work or starting to work again after war, it's always about soldiers coming back from war that they worked in the army and not in a position that they worked in companies and then went away. So we digged about it, we spoke with lots of managers, we understood the needs. We needed to understand what is the real pain in the organizations to know how to give the right solution. We really didn't think that this war will last so much time, so we hope we won't need to do it. And we won't need to deal with it during a war routine. We thought we will deal with it as a side effect of the war, the aftershock, let's call it like this. But we understood that everyone here is talking about a war that could last over a year, that we have to call it a war routine and to deal with it like this, because people came back to work after they were released from the army, but 1 month later they can be called again. So the organization needs to be prepared for this.
And I mean, just looking at some of the early challenges and maybe some of the early wins. You talked obviously about the disruption, the anxiety of the people themselves, but maybe, I mean, how is this actually affecting the organizations as a whole? Are they just kind of rolling with the punches? How are the organizations doing through this whole process?
I can say that the Israeli people are very helpful to each other, but organizations are being affected from that because people are not working. There is I'm sorry. The knowledge is leaking because people with knowledge are sometimes injured, sometimes getting killed during the war, and everyone needs to make sure that the work goes on. But it's the anxious and the anxiety and the fears that we feel. We are exhausted, all of us. We are exhausted because we don't know if we wake up from alarms again, and if this person will come or not. And I told you before that we hear the helicopters here all the time, so we know what it means. It means injured soldiers. So we are all the time. We are almost 4 months of feeling anxiety that never stops. So of course, organizations are being affected from that because people are less concentrate. They have some of them have lack of motivation, and they are exhausted because they are working. Sometimes one person work like 4, and it's very difficult for long term.
So just, I mean, you're now sitting at the heart of this, trying to build this program out. How's this affected you personally, and how's this affected your kind of approach to learning and development?
I think that what we do is so important. I feel when the war started, I felt like the world collapsed on me. It was nothing like we knew. I'm a third generation of Holocaust survivors, and suddenly I heard stories that I heard from my grandfather when I was a child, and it was terrible. And everyone did something over here. Like I said, Israelis are very helpful to each other, and everyone did something. So we gave clothes to the persons who their houses were on fire, and we gave food. We did whatever we could, but it felt like it's not enough. And I always thought that what else can I do? What can I do? What is my proficiency? What can I do to help? And I understood that what I can do is to look at organizations and to understand what they need and to give it to them, because my proficiency is strategic learning and development, and I can see the macro and the micro, and to understand how it combines together and what the organization needs and what is the solutions. And I thought that it can't be something we already did. It can't be again, let's sit together and talk, because it's not this situation like we used to. We need to do something else. And I believe in learning during. We learn when we feel what we are learning, when we combine all of our senses, and I think that the way we thought is the right way. It's absolutely different than what we are used to. To speak through photos, to speak to microphone, and to hear yourself speaking, and to feel the authenticness of everything. Because I think that at least in 2024, we need to be authentic, because this is what we need. This is what the world needs. And I feel like I can do something to help, because before I felt like I'm doing nothing, and it felt terrible.
So it's a bit of a kind of I mean, a question I've always been fascinated with, and I suspect the conversation brings a new light to it. But through many times in my past career, kind of having the opportunity to kind of spend a little bit of time in Silicon Valley and the US, I've always been really fascinated by just the way that Israeli startups and companies seem to be so naturally innovative. Everywhere you kind of look in Silicon Valley, there's an Israeli startup that's basically like knocking it out the park. And I'm just curious as to, can you shed some light on what you think, or like why you think that is? I mean, what is it about the kind of country, the ecosystem, the companies, the people that tend to make them, more, I think, kind of on average more successful than most other countries and their startups?
So I will ask you: do you want the PC question, the PC answer, or the real answer?
I want the real answer.
I think, and I will say it I will say it in a positive way, because I think it's very positive. I think we are lazy. And when I say that, okay, I mean that we always, and this is the innovation, because we always think about how can we do it faster, how can we do it better, and not to do it with working 24 hours, despite the fact that we all do, but it's the laziness that makes us better, I think, because think about it, that all the startups that started here, like Waze, like I don't know, we've got lots of them, but think about Waze. We don't want to learn the maps and to know where to ride and how to. The application says go, and we go. So I think this is the innovation. We think how to make things better and faster.
And what do you, I mean, besides, I mean, I'm not so sure that telling other companies to be lazy probably is what they would want to hear. But I think in the kind of, in that, I would almost say that it's probably, not so much laziness as it is a desire to just find a simpler, better, less kind of like frustrating way to do things. Now, if you were kind of looking at kind of working with companies outside of Israel and helping them maybe through the kind of your learning and development initiatives understand a little bit about the kind of secret sauce or the magic behind how they can kind of adopt this behavior, what would be some of the things that you would be encouraging them to think about or to do?
First of all, get out of the box, because we always think that we have only one solution or two solutions. There are plenty of solutions. And I think this is one of the, like I said before, the PC answer is what you said about make things simpler. But I think that the most important thing is that we are thinking outside the box, because when you do that, you see that there are plenty of ideas and plenty of things you can do better to make things simpler. And if an organization that doesn't have our way of thinking, we can call it like that, it can just assume that everything he thinks, there are more options, there are more solutions, and he can use them. He just needs to make sure that he uses the right people, because sometimes, and I always say it to managers I work with, sometimes the answers, and usually the answers, are from the bottom up and not from top down. And I can say that when I was a learning and development manager, people came to me from the branches, and they called me and they told me, listen, there is a problem like that, and maybe we should do this and this and this to expand the answer to the client. And then I thought, okay, cool. And I thought with my team, and we made up with ideas that even the VPs didn't think about. And this was a good answer, and we did, and we made a change because of that. And if you think that you know everything, then you're arrogant, and it's not true. We always learn. We never know everything, and there is always another option.
Yes, I'm a big believer in that. I believe if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But you talked about, you talked about kind of one of the big thing you would do is tell people to kind of get out of the box or think outside the box. And I think a lot of people I've observed, struggle between the statement itself that sounds so easy, like get out the box, like how hard can it be to get out the box, to actually doing it. And like thinking like, how on earth do I get out the box? Because my worldview defines me, it traps me. My experience and expertise limits my thinking. So, or just kind of polarizes it. How, like, what type of processes or tips or suggestions can you share to help people, just kind of help them get like out of the box and do that out the box thinking?
First of all, change your place. Go outside. The nature helps everything, in my opinion. I'm using it a lot, to go outside and think outside. I think that everything you can expand your knowledge about can help you to get outside the box, because really it's easy to say that, but the truth is, like you said, we are locked in our thinking. But it's always maybe brainstorming, asking other people. We spoke about the ecosystem, so ask colleagues we're doing that a lot. We've got communities, we occasionally speak, we've got coffee breaks, even virtually, and it really helps because, like we said, we're not the smartest in the room, so we need to learn from others' experience and sometimes to hear from someone else what he did and to make an adaptation to your needs is getting out of the box. So just expand your limits and learn as fast as you can and as long as you can, because this is what makes the difference.
Yeah, completely agree. And also, I mean, I've always like been very I think very in kind of intrigued and always believed that this concept of a T-shaped individual, this person who has a depth of experience but just exposes themselves to a lot of different environments, a lot of different areas of knowledge, so that they get that kind of broad understanding of the world, of different types of industries, and it also allows them to actually be more innovative and creative and get out the box.
Definitely.
Do you kind of see that as part of the, I mean, you talked about getting outside, but in terms of your kind of personal background, it sounds like you've come from a lot of different industries, you know, kind of coming through recruitment and other types of I suppose functions and industries. Have you seen that you've kind of also developed that breadth of experience that kind of adds value to your area of expertise?
I think that from every job I made, even before as a student, every job I made, every job I've been through, I've learned something. And it also, it's always, even when you think that it's a bad place or it wasn't the good place for you, when you see it on the long term, you can always see, and it's a fact, that you've taken something from there. Because I can see sometimes that even if it's a bad thing, then you say, I'm not going to be like that. I'm not going to be that manager. But it helps you, and I think it built who I am as a manager and as an L&D strategist, and I'm thankful for every step of the way, because I think that if people don't look at it like that, they are missing the ability to grow, and that's a shame. Yeah.
I mean, it kind of almost brings us a little bit back, is you know, we in situations like what Israel is facing now, we always tend to kind of focus on the bad, you know, like we did during COVID. We tended to focus on the bad, but it's always fascinates me that as human beings, we are incredibly resilient. We, you know, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but generally, yeah, as a kind of species, we're very resilient, and we always seem to come out the other side having adapted and changed to the circumstances, no matter how dire the situation. And I mean, I've heard, for instance, you mentioned the Holocaust earlier, and I've just heard such beautiful stories of people's forgiveness and how they've kind of taken something quite horrible, but it's just kind of adapted and changed them into a much better person, someone who's kind of more forgiving, more understanding, and now we sit kind of in this very, very difficult situation for many people, for many organizations. You know, just kind of seeing how it's playing out now and looking a little bit forward to the future, and focusing maybe on some of the positives as opposed to just negatives. I mean, what things are you kind of seeing that might positively change businesses, people as a result of the, I suppose, the change of lifestyle, the impacts that they're going through right now?
Look, when you speak about looking at the bed, I felt like what I was taught my whole life is always to see what's good. And every time I feel in a bad place, I give it a place, but I also ask myself, what is good? What is good in my life? And I think that I even wrote about it. There is, when I've learned a resilience class in my MA, we've learned about PTG, post-traumatic growth. And I think that the pandemic, the Holocaust, what happened to us, we need to think of the positive way, even if it's very dark right now and it's very difficult. But in the end, because it's like we've got this it feels like we've got this in our DNA, the resilience. And if you think about it and you feel that you understand that now it feels like the end of the world, but in the end life is more powerful than anything, then you know that eventually it will be okay. But you need to make things to make it happen, to develop programs that will help your organization do that, to give your people the ability to feel and to say how they feel and to give them their time, because when everything is in chaos, you need to understand that it's difficult right now to see the light, because now it's very dark. But there are always people in every organization, at least in our society, that there are always people who see the light and shows you the light. And I think that this is amazing, because you spoke about compassion and forgiveness, and sometimes there are things we can't forget, but we need to accept it, because this is the situation and we need to live, and we need to make a progress and to understand that this is life, if we want it or not. Because I always think about my grandparents, and I think they've lost all their families. They lost everyone. They came here by themselves, and they made an amazing family that we've got here. And I think life is just powerful than anything. And if you think like that and you see the good, even if it's bad, then even organizations can be in a different place. But it's tough. I can't say it's easy. It's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, this may be a very very deep question, but I think a lot of people look to the world today and look at this concept of leadership, and I've been kind of involved in numerous debates and conversations about, is there a problem with leadership in the world today? And I think there's a debate to say yes, there definitely is. If you maybe take a look at global leaders and the way that they're behaving, but then on the other side of the coin is no, I don't think there is a leadership problem in the world today, because everywhere you look, you don't have to always look up. You can look in organizations, you can look in different areas, and you see brilliant examples of remarkable leaders stepping forward. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, from your perspective, kind of looking at all those different, kind of looking at country leadership, at business leadership, at community leadership. What is your general take on leadership in the world today?
It is a deep question. It's very complicated because it feels like globally everything is very rough, and leaders are using power instead of thinking what the people need. And I think it's the same in organizations. So if you can see that the organizations that are successful are having leaders that are seeing their people, and they are developing them, and they see their needs, because when people are satisfied and feels that they have meaning in the organizations, and I guess that as well in countries, so they will give more because they feel that they are important. And it's very complicated what's going on in the leadership in the world, but I think I want to think that at least here we started a conversation about it, that women leadership is a better way of looking, and the world needs to understand it, because women has the ability to be in the emotional side and in the rational side. And I think it's time for women leadership even globally.
So just expand on it. I mean, where do you think it is? Where do you? I mean, where should we be going to kind of? I completely agree. I think that the most effective companies I've seen is where there is a balance of both kind of male leadership, female leadership. There's one doesn't dominate the other. There's a place for diversity. There's a place for learning and collaboration and understanding. Where, in your mind, where is it right now? Where do you see it going? What do you think the biggest hurdles and challenges are?
I think it's the perception. This is the challenge right now, because if those organizations that succeed to collaborate and to have an equal women and men leadership, they are successful. If they will be, they are succeeding. So if the other organizations that think that only men rule the world or something like that, it's so old-fashioned, will understand that diversity and inclusion and the ability to give everyone their place will rule the organizations. It will be a win-win for everyone, because everyone will feel important and equal. And I always come back to that, because everyone needs to feel meaningful, and the organizations are getting people that are more engaged and that wants to stay and wants to give more and wants to share ideas. And if we talked about innovation, so this is how it goes, because when I'm an employee that has an idea and my manager is the one who wants to listen and wants to learn from me, then it's a win-win, and I will do it, and I will stay, and I won't take my idea and go to a different place. So I think this is the way we need to go to.
Yeah, and I do think that, I mean, it just strikes me that there's so many fundamental challenges in this space as well. I mean, everything from the kind of long debated STEM issue, where a lot of girls are just, kind of I guess just not doing enough STEM subjects. I mean, being in the IT industry, I would really, really love to see more female developers, more female engineers, right the way through to, kind of implied bias to, even kind of things like menopause affecting, women who, when they've got all of this incredible knowledge, incredible experience, leaving the working world. So I think there's so much opportunity, but also I appreciate the magnitude of the challenge ahead, and there's so many different factors that play a role. I don't have the solution. Wish I did.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure we've got the solution, but we need to talk about it, and it needs to be on the table. We need to speak about it. We need to find things. I know that in our country we've got lots of programs that helps women to get inside the IT places, and that give them learning for free. Just come to learn, and we will help you to work in the industry, and it works amazingly. One of them called, I don't think they exist anymore, but it was She Code, and it was amazing because there is no real reason that women won't be in the IT industry, and it's like we were taught that women should be in very soft jobs, like nurses, like I don't know, kindergarteners or teachers or something like that. And it's not true, because we're not different than men. And I think that this is the problem, because this is what we are taught.
Yeah, I think it's. I think we've misunderstood the role of. I mean, I do think that, generally speaking, women are more probably empathetic than men. I know I'm walking on dangerous territory right now, but there's so many opportunities to apply those skills in any role. So even in technical and engineering type of roles, I've seen the value that kind of softer, more empathetic approach brings into teams, into team dynamics. I've seen a bunch of male software developers having a meeting, and then one female software developer gets into that meeting, and how the whole dynamic changes, and often it's for the better. So I really do hope that we solve these problems going forward, because every time I've experienced it, I've seen the massive value that kind of female leaders bring to the table. Even when they don't believe they're leaders, they actually, I think everybody takes on the leadership role. It's just a question of how much of a leadership role, and how much you actually are aware of yourself being a leader. Because I think one of the biggest barriers to leadership is we don't believe we're leaders, but everybody is a leader in some form, shape, or capacity.
I believe it as well, because you only need to upskill yourself. That's it. It's not. We can learn everything, in my opinion. We can learn everything. We can be better in most of the things. We need to understand what we're good at. Okay, what are our strengths? But when we do, the sky's the limit, and even they are not. So I think that it all depends on our understanding.
All right, so just as we're coming to the kind of end of our podcast, there's always two questions I like to ask. The first one is just I'm always a big fan of when dogs interrupt podcasts, by the way. I think it just
And I'm like, shut up. She is making noises all the time. But she's pretty.
It's okay. My little one's sleeping in the corner.
I wish she was.
So I mean, yeah, it's very rare actually, mine sleeping in the corner quietly. I guess normally we kind of look at how we kind of leave a takeaway of like a little like nugget of wisdom that we can leave behind for the people watching. And I guess in this case, it's you've gone through this remarkable journey of growth, which often we do in the kind of most dire of circumstances. And my question to you, which probably is quite a challenging, deep, tough question, is what should the rest of us out, in kind of companies around the world, what is that piece of advice, that nugget of knowledge that you've learned over the past few months that we can take into our businesses, our learning and development teams, our change management teams, whatever it is, just what is that nugget of wisdom?
That's a good question, because I hope no one will ever need to deal with what we are dealing. But after the COVID, I think that the chaos is around us all the time. So maybe to put, first of all, to be authentic, okay? To understand the needs of your people, the real needs, not what we think they need, what they say they need, and how do we translate it to our language of learning and development, but really understand their needs, because when everything is a mess, you really need someone to hear you, to be there for you. Organization needs to understand that their people need, I say it all the time, but I really believe in that they need to feel meaningful, and like I said, it's a win-win situation, that the organization gets more engaged, and their people will do everything for them because they saw them in the difficult times. And it doesn't need to be a war. It's also if someone loses someone close to him, or if a person comes back from maternity leave and she is in a mess because she is tired and her baby wakes her up like 10 times a night. So it doesn't need to be a huge mess. It can be something difficult, something small, like those things, and just see your people. This is in an emotional and compassionate way. And I think this is the huge difference that we've learned in this couple of months that makes the difference.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think there's definitely, I think, a huge opportunity for more compassion, more empathy in the workplace. And yeah, I think the companies who are kind of starting to apply that thinking are seeing the profound change that it can have for the good in organizations. Last question then is we always ask our guests if they've recently read a book, seen a podcast, watched something, had a emotional experience, had an epiphany, or something that's had a profound effect on them, if they could share that with us and the audience.
So I thought about it a lot in the couple of last month. As you can understand, I didn't read a book or had a lot of time to listen to a podcast. Only the Hebrew ones that spoke about war-life balance. But I have a book that I always come back to, and I think it summarizes everything I said. It's in Hebrew, but it's got an English version as well. It's Viktor Frankl's book, and it's an amazing book that calls Man's Search for Meaning. It's an introduction for logotherapy. I don't know if you've read it, but it's an amazing book that every time I feel like everything is a mess, I come back to it. It's not an easy book, but I have resilience in my DNA because I've heard horror stories as a child. But I think that the understanding, and this is the main point of this book, the understanding that everyone lives for a meaning because they got a meaning in their life. They got something to cherish for, to wait for, to live for. It's the most important thing we have, and this is the light when everything is in the dark place. And Viktor Frankl was in the dark place. And I think that if we take it to organizations, then again, the fact that employees will feel meaningful to their organizations, in their organizations, it will make all the difference. And I really love this book because it puts everything in the right proportions, and you can see that even in the darkest places you can see the light, and it's amazing. It's amazing. I really recommend to read this book.
Yeah, it's a great book, and you just reminded me about how long ago I read it, and probably well overdue a revisit. Rakefet, I just wanted to say thank you so much. It's been a very open, honest conversation. It's been eye-opening for me, and I'm sure many people watching this are keeping an eye on what's going on, but not really understanding the impact that it's having in every single facet of people's lives. And we've just touched on one small facet, and you've given us an amazing insight into the impact this is having on people's lives. The resilience of the people in Israel and how they're dealing with this, and your unique journey. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Jason, and I hope everything will be better soon.
Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Impact Learning Visionaries. If you found it interesting or helpful, please subscribe by clicking on the button down below so you don't miss our next one. Also, be sure to check out our Reality Bites blog for more information on how technology is aiding in learning development. Links are all in the description below. Go check it out. Thanks a lot. Bye.